wow, I mean, it's so interesting. I'm artist myself, or I guess people know at this point. But I have never explore digital, and
Yeah.
it's something that I'm trying to grow around, but it always so interesting to understand that by using the tool, as my friend Ignacio from San Cristóbal de las Casas told me, it's like, usa la herramienta. It's at times
Exacto.
seeing the possibility of utilizing the tool, it's something that as artists sometimes we need to grow around, because we just put ourselves at limits of what we can use and what we cannot, and it's
Right.
all in our heads. So
Right.
it's great that you found kind of it sounds like you found a balance right there of like,
Right.
okay, I'm working with this, but I'm also going to enhance or work with that by using the tool.
Right.
So
Yeah.
that's awesome.
Yeah,
That's
you definitely
awesome.
want to have an idea, like a basic idea of what you would like
Mm-hmm.
to get, but you also have to be able to adapt to whatever environment you're throwing yourself in.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. So where does Elisa Elvira, by the way, I love that you're Elisa Elvira, because the aunt that my family love, adore, and
Yes.
was the example of, you can have a very successful life being LGBTQ in her
Yeah.
generation was Nuestra Tía Elvira.
Right.
That so I love that that's your artistic name, Elisa Elvira.
Oh, and I got to tell you why I chose
Why?
my artistic name being my first and middle name. So there are two stories to that. So my mother named me Elisa Elvira after a Venezuelan painter, Elisa Elvira Zuluaga.
Oh
Um,
wow.
and I don't think she remembers, or maybe she was unconsciously influenced by this, but I think she died either that the year or the year before. So I was born in 81. I think she had passed away in 1980 or 81, around that time. So I'm guessing that she was in the news. And my mom just said that she really liked that name, Elisa Elvira, and she named me after her, basically. So it's so funny that this is an artist, a painter, and she named me after a painter. So in thinking whether I wanted to use my full name or my legal name, I was like, let me use Elisa Elvira because that's the name of an artist. But then there's the other inside joke of my mother calling me Elisa Elvira when she was mad at me, when I was about to get scolded.
Elisa Elvira!
And the only person who knows this is my friend Maria Andreina, who still today, if she wants to talk to me seriously about something, she always says, Elisa Elvira, ven acá que tengo que hablar contigo. But I think she's the only human being in the planet who still calls me Elisa Elvira. So I was like, let me play around with that. But seriously, when I was a kid and I heard my mom saying, Elisa Elvira, I'll be like, oh my God, what is it? What did I do? What did I do?
In trouble. I'm in trouble. Oh my God.
Yeah, so I think
I don't have a middle name. So but for me, everybody, all my friends and family, Daniel Juro Goyrisalaja. That means like,
there you go.
I'm in trouble.
Yeah. So it's the same thing.
Oh.
I think I've turned it into something of a joke, something more positive, and use it as an artistic name. Yeah.
Yeah. I like that. Well, what a beautiful story.
Yeah.
Listen, because we don't want to extend ourselves too much.
Sure.
I would like to know if there's I want to know after this what is Elisa Elvira, the artist, not the other artist, but this artist,
right.
Ambition, and what does the future look for you? What is that you're aiming for?
Right. Well, I have a number of projects that I would love to do. They're not just necessarily in photography. But that's something that I have to work with during the summer. Like now that I'm officially done, even though I keep tweaking this project, but now that I'm officially done with this project, what do I want to do next? Unfortunately, I feel very limited right now because normally I go out and take photographs, and right now you can't really go out. So I'm thinking, what can I do indoors, or which public places can I go to safely where I could perhaps start a new project? And it's probably not something that I'll finish this summer, maybe something I'll finish next summer. But like I said, I have a lot of ideas in my mind. Unfortunately, they're not ideas that I could work with because they require going to public places with large crowds. And that's not something that's going to happen at the moment. But who knows? Maybe this situation is going to force me to like literally look inside, look indoors, and maybe do some indoor photography, which I don't think I've ever done.
That's interesting, right?
I know.
I mean, it's always something, you can always create something new.
and it could be something related to you know, the pandemic and COVID-19. Like, what is life throwing at me right now that maybe I should be photographing and I didn't know it?
Yeah. Awesome. Awesome. I
Yeah.
like that. And I can't wait to really see what you come up with this, because it sounds like you already have an idea,
Right.
and the motivation is there. So it's just a matter of starting.
Right. Jump on it. Yes.
No pressure, no pressure, no pressure. Well, I wanted to, first of all, thank you. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for doing this with us.
Well, thank you for
I'm
inviting me.
very, very excited that we are having the opportunity to share your story, to share your craft, to share your journey, not only as an artist, as a photographer, but also your journey through 12 Phases of a Moon. And I thought, from the moment that I read that, I saw, and it was very moving to see the dedication that you put into a whole year to capture these moments. You know, I mean, a lot of people talk about projects like 365 Project and so on, and it's a picture every day. But the fact that you organize yourself, less pictures too, I'm assuming less pictures, but it was, you know,
Yeah.
but like really have a meaning and have the connection, and how you made your story so relatable. I really like to believe that you tap into not only your individual journey, but you share a story through these images that the rest of the community can relate, the audience can
Right.
relate. So you tap into the universalidad.
Yeah, but that's why I keep calling it el inconsciente colectivo, the collective unconscious, el inconsciente colectivo. And see, this is something I didn't mention before. In looking at what I wanted to add, I also looked into, or I accidentally bump into different names for the moon every month, and they mostly come from Native American cultures. And that's why I added to the project. I'm like, this is so interesting. I honestly think that we all need to learn a number of things from Native American cultures, especially when it relates to the environment. But that's, if you look at every name that the moon has, at least in the United States, it has to do with what the environment was like at the time. So like the strawberry moon in June is when you harvest strawberries, or in July, the buck moon is when the antlers finally grow to their maximum for deers, or
it's a circle of life.
Yeah, it's about
the circle of life.
Yes. So I wanted to bring that as well, that Native American tradition of how they were so much more connected with nature than we are today.
Yeah, no, believe me. I mean, during my first time in the country, in La Campiña, I had started to pay attention to nature, and nature has a pattern, and it repeats itself, and it grows, and all the time it's giving you the signs of what's next. And I feel that not only Native American culture, but a lot of the indigenous cultures were significantly connected to that more than our Eastern thinking way. Western.
I was going to say, like, we're not in Japan. Western.
It's like Western, Eastern. Oh my God, yeah. It's like izquierda y derecha, left or right. I'm not ability to do so. But what I was going to say, tapping a little bit into Native American and tapping a little bit into indigenous cultures, a lot of them talking about LGBT community, that was not an issue for them. These people that were exploring something or were different were not marginalized, were actually celebrated or considered double spirit, consider somebody that had the ability to connect with both sides. And instead of being somebody that should be ashamed, it was somebody that will be put and built into being a shaman. So it's so interesting that there's that relationship with being connected with nature in order to be also connected for what we are and who we are as human beings. So it's magical that you included that as part of the journey too. You know, and it just adds up to us celebrating what we celebrate this weekend with the opening of your digital expo.
Thank you.
Well,
So happy to be here.
Oh my God, I want to give you a platform to one more time. Is there
Sure.
anything that you would like to share with us? And, you know, please know that las puertas of el patio de mi casa and the doors
Right.
of el patio de mi casa will be always open for you, for your
Right.
mom.
Right.
You know, it has been a journey for all of us moving to
Right.
this country for sure.
Yeah. Well, and in thinking about that, in thinking of us being, you know, immigrants in this country, and I can't avoid saying something about what's going on with the demonstrations, because it goes back to the LGBT community. I mean, we just celebrated once again the Stonewall riots back in 1969, and whether we understand it or not, those kinds of demonstrations, and even if they unfortunately turn into riots, those are the ones that have bring about change. And that's why we can look back at in history and look what the Stonewall riots did for the gay community right after all the laws that were reformed that gave protection to members of the gay community. The same thing with these demonstrations, and I know that people have their particular opinions about it. Decades from now, they're going to call it, who knows, the Black Lives Matter riots or the Black Lives Matter demonstrations. But within a few weeks, they've already created change. And that's what amazes me, that in just a few weeks, they've created the radical change that has been advocated for years, if not decades, by lawyers, by activists. What this group of people who, through other demonstrations, through the judicial system, through legislation or lobbying, couldn't do in years or decades of that particular work, protesters did it in a few weeks. And that's amazing. I mean, it is sad that people have to go out on the streets and have to demand their rights, but it is creating profound change. So I'm actually happy about that. But I saw the connection with the LGBTQ community.
No, of course. And actually, now that you present that, it's really interesting because, you know, while being here, I keep thinking, you know, internalizing like humans as a species and how do we behave, how do we treat nature, or how do we think that we have control over nature. So for the first few weeks, I have been thinking, well, this pandemic is basically Mother Nature, the planet, trying to shake off this ticks.
Very much.
Does not cooperate. But at the same time, adding that up, if you think about it, I think that it was necessary for Mother Nature to put us on the emotional circumstances that we are as a society, confined, putting life perspective, being forced to see this, to find those emotions, to find that thrive, we want, but this, I mean, lives matter and Black lives matter. And I think that all these emotions have just boiled up into the perfect equation to, we need to get this done. And that's my personal opinion. But it's kind of the irony. It's like, I thought that Mother Nature was trying to take care of us, like the movie they happen in, like, it's like, oh my God, we're dying and we don't know how it is. And it's the truth. Sorry, oops. but at the same time, it's more like Mother Nature is saying, oh guys, you need a little bit of help. Let me just spice things up. More like Michelle Wolf, kind of like Mother Nature is a little bit of like a Californian Babbitt girl. But it's like, well, let me just heat up the boiling situation here so you guys can figure it out and you can survive as a species instead of killing each other and mistreating each other. Because everybody should have the same right and the same opportunity to thrive to their best potential. It doesn't matter how you look, how you talk, how you were raised. As long as you want to do it, you should be able to do it. And that applies to everybody. So
you would think everybody thinks that way.
I know. Can we? How do we do that?
It's a long journey.
It's a long journey, but we're walking it. And I think that's the important part, right?
Yes.
All right. Well, Paco's here to tell me that, you know, it's time to eat. It's time to eat. It's time to take care of business. But I wanted to thank you again. Thank you so much for joining us and sharing your journey.
Gracias.
And thank you for creating this incredible body of work. I think that is so powerful that you capture the journey and the results are beautiful. And I want you to never stop creating and to remember that you always can create something new, and that here at El Patio de Mi Casa, you have open doors, and we would love for you to continue doing things with us.